A fragile alliance. The heavy rain poured down in the neon-lit alleyway as Alex Carter clutched his coat tightly. His heart raced, and every step echoed through the empty streets. He couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching him. Glancing over his shoulder, he caught a glimpse of movement, a shadow shifting in the corner of his vision. Alex quickened his pace, the unease growing with every second. Suddenly, a figure stepped into his path, blocking his way. It was a tall alien woman, her presence commanding and deadly. Her silver armor gleamed under the dim streetlights, and her violet eyes seemed to pierce right through him. "Alex Carter," she said in a calm, almost mechanical tone, "you have been marked for elimination." Alex froze. The words didn't just chill him, they sent his mind spinning. Who are you?" he stammered. "I am Celara," she replied, gripping the hilt of a sleek alien weapon at her side. "And this is where your existence ends." Alex's instincts screamed at him to run, but his legs refused to move. "I don't even know why you're after me," he shouted, raising his hands in a desperate attempt to reason with her. Celara tilted her head, studying him. "Your actions have threatened the balance of power in this galaxy. You carry knowledge that must not fall into the wrong hands." "What knowledge?" Alex's voice cracked. "I'm just a translator. I worked on interspecies missions. But that's it. I have no idea what you're talking about." Her hand tightened around the hilt of her weapon, but something in Alex's voice made her pause. For the first time in her career as an assassin, Celara hesitated. Her violet eyes narrowed as she activated the advanced scanner built into her helmet. The scanner analyzed Alex's body language, heart rate, and neural responses. All signs pointed to him telling the truth. "Impossible," she muttered under her breath. "You're either a brilliant liar, or you truly don't know." Alex saw the hesitation and latched onto it. "Please," he begged, his voice trembling. "I don't know who sent you, but I swear, I'm not a threat to anyone. Let me go, and I'll disappear. You'll never see me again." Celara's inner conflict deepened. She had been trained from birth to eliminate her targets without question, but Alex didn't fit the profile of the dangerous man her superiors described. There was no malice in his eyes, only fear and confusion. Before she could make a decision, the sound of approaching footsteps interrupted them. Celara turned sharply, her weapon drawn. A group of armed bounty hunters emerged from the shadows, their faces twisted with greed. "Looks like we found ourselves a bonus," one of them sneered, aiming his rifle at Alex. "Hand him over, alien, and we'll let you walk away." Celara's grip tightened on her weapon. "This target is mine," she said coldly. "Stand down." The bounty hunters laughed. "You're outnumbered, lady. Just step aside." Alex's fear spiked as the tension thickened. He looked at Celara, silently pleading for help. For reasons she couldn't fully understand, Celara stepped in front of him, shielding him from the bounty hunters. "You will not harm him," she said, her voice low and dangerous. The bounty hunters opened fire, but Celara moved with inhuman speed and precision. Her blade flashed as she deflected the shots, closing the distance between her and the attackers. Within moments, the alley was filled with sparks and the sound of metal clashing against armor. Alex watched in stunned silence as Celara fought. She was like a force of nature, every move calculated, every strike lethal. Despite the overwhelming odds, she took down the bounty hunters one by one, leaving no room for retaliation. When the last attacker fell, Celara turned back to Alex. Her armor was scorched and her breathing was heavy, but her eyes still burned with determination. "Why did you protect me?" Alex asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Celara hesitated for a moment before answering. "I don't know," she admitted. "But if what you say is true, then I need answers. Until I have them, your life is mine to protect." Alex blinked in disbelief. "So, what now?" "Now," she said, gripping his arm firmly, "we run. They will send more, and if you truly don't know why they're after you, we need to find out before it's too late." As they disappeared into the night, Alex couldn't help but wonder if he had just traded one danger for another. But for now, he had no choice but to trust the alien assassin who had spared his life. The mission. Silera paced back and forth in the dimly lit room, her sleek armor glinting under the flickering lights of the abandoned warehouse. Her sharp violet eyes never left Alex, who sat hunched on a rickety chair, his head in his hands. The silence between them was suffocating. "You're making me nervous," Alex muttered, his voice breaking the tension. Silera ignored him, her focus on the communication interface embedded in her wrist gauntlet. She had been reviewing her mission orders for the past 20 minutes, hoping to find something, anything, that would explain why Alex Carter was deemed such a significant threat. But nothing added up. The holographic text from her superior replayed in her mind. "Terminate Alex Carter. He is a destabilizing force that could bring ruin to the peace we've worked so hard to achieve." Peace. Silera scoffed internally. Her people's idea of peace often came at the cost of countless lives, and for the first time, she began to question whether she was just another tool in their endless games of control. Alex shifted in his chair, his nervous energy pulling her attention. "Look, if you're going to kill me, just get it over with," he blurted out, his voice laced with frustration. Silera tilted her head, her expression unreadable. "If I wanted you dead, you'd be dead already," she said coolly. "Comforting," Alex muttered. "So why am I still alive?" She hesitated, a rare moment of vulnerability flickering across her usually stoic face. "I'm beginning to wonder the same thing." The words hung heavy in the air. Alex stared at her, trying to decipher the enigma standing before him. She wasn't just a soldier. There was something deeper driving her, a crack in her otherwise impenetrable armor. Before either of them could say more, the sound of a high-pitched drone echoed through the warehouse. Silera froze, her keen senses picking up the distinct whir of an approaching hunter drone. "They found us," she said sharply, grabbing Alex by the arm and pulling him to his feet. "Wait, who's they?" Alex protested as she dragged him toward the back exit. "Your enemies," Silera snapped, her tone leaving no room for argument. "And now mine, thanks to you." The two burst into the alley behind the warehouse just as the drone's searchlights pierced through the windows. Silera shoved Alex into the shadows, her hand instinctively reaching for her weapon. "You need to keep moving," she ordered, scanning their surroundings for threats. "And go where?" Alex hissed. "I don't even know why they're after me." "That makes two of us," Silera said, her voice tight with frustration. "But until I figure it out, you stay alive. That's the only way to uncover the truth." The drone's lights swept across the alley, and Silera raised her arm, firing a precise pulse shot that shattered the drone midair. The explosion illuminated the alley for a brief moment, casting her in a halo of light that made Alex's breath catch. "Wow," he muttered, half in awe, half in terror. "Remind me not to get on your bad side." She shot him a glare but didn't respond. Her focus was already on their next move. "We need to disappear. If they've sent drones, it won't be long before ground forces arrive." "Disappear," Alex echoed. "Where do you suggest we go? I don't exactly have a spaceship lying around." Silara's lips twitched in what might have been the faintest hint of amusement. "I do," she said simply. Before Alex could process her words, she pressed a hidden button on her gauntlet, and a sleek alien hovercraft decloaked nearby, its engines humming softly. "Get in," she ordered, striding toward the craft. Alex hesitated, glancing back at the warehouse that had provided them temporary safety. He had a sinking feeling that stepping into Silara's ship was only going to drag him deeper into a web of danger he didn't understand. But what choice did he have? As he climbed aboard, Silera activated the ship's stealth mode, and the craft lifted off into the night sky. For a brief moment, Alex allowed himself to admire the city lights below, unaware of the storm brewing above them. "Where are we going?" he finally asked. Celara glanced at him, her expression unreadable. "To a place where they won't find us, and where you're going to give me answers, whether you have them or not." Alex swallowed hard, the weight of her words sinking in. This wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about uncovering the truth, about himself, about Celara's mission, and about the shadowy forces that had brought them together. Little did he know, the answers they sought would change the course of both their lives forever. A false target. The hum of the alien hovercraft's engine filled the silence between them as Celara piloted through the pitch-black sky. Alex sat stiffly in the co-pilot seat, his hands gripping the armrests like his life depended on it. He didn't trust her, not entirely, but he had no other choice. Every move she made was precise, calculated, like she'd already planned for 100 outcomes. Yet, there was a strange tension in her sharp violet eyes, as though she was grappling with something even she couldn't control. "Talk," Celara ordered, her gaze fixed on the flickering console in front of her. "Talk about what?" Alex replied, trying to keep the fear out of his voice. "Everything," she said coldly. "Who you've worked with, what you've done, every word you've spoken that might justify the price on your head. Leave nothing out." Alex sighed, running his fingers through his messy hair. "I already told you. I'm a translator, nothing more. I've worked on a few interspecies negotiation missions. Boring stuff, really. No galactic secrets, no conspiracies, no weapons plans. Just words." Celara's jaw tightened. She hated the possibility that he might actually be telling the truth. If her mission was built on lies, what did that make her? "Words can be dangerous," she said, her voice softer now. "Sometimes more than weapons." "Then maybe you should be hunting a poet," Alex shot back. Celara arched an eyebrow at him. "This isn't a joke, human. People want you dead. They wouldn't deploy someone like me if you weren't a real threat." "Someone like you," Alex said, a faint edge of sarcasm in his tone. "What's that supposed to mean? A professional killer with cool armor and zero sense of humor?" For a split second, Celara's lips twitched, but she quickly masked it. "Stay focused. I need to figure out why you were flagged before more bounty hunters find us." Before Alex could reply, the hovercraft's console beeped sharply, and a red holographic warning lit up the cabin. Celara's eyes widened. "Brace yourself," she said, flipping switches with lightning speed. "What's happening?" Alex shouted, gripping the seat as the craft veered sharply to the right. "We're being locked onto." Celara growled. "Someone's tracking us." A bright streak of light shot past the craft, narrowly missing them. Alex's stomach lurched as the hovercraft twisted and turned in an evasive pattern. Through the window, he could see a squadron of smaller drones tailing them. "They're not giving up, are they?" Alex muttered. Celara didn't respond. Her hands moved like lightning across the controls as she activated the hovercraft's cloaking system. The ship shimmered, and the world outside the window seemed to warp. The drones lost sight of them momentarily, but Celara knew it wouldn't last long. They needed a place to hide. She scanned the radar, her heart sinking when she realized their only option. "We're landing," she said abruptly, guiding the craft toward a dense jungle below. Alex's eyes widened. "Landing? In there?" "Yes," she snapped. "And don't argue. You don't have better ideas." Moments later, the hovercraft settled on the forest floor, hidden beneath the thick canopy of alien trees. Alex stumbled out, his legs shaky, while Celara retrieved a compact weapon from the ship. "You've done this before, haven't you?" Alex asked, watching her with a mix of awe and nervousness. "Survival," she said, raising an eyebrow. "It's what I was made for." As they moved through the forest, Celara kept scanning the area for threats. She could feel Alex's eyes on her, filled with questions he was too afraid to ask. Finally, he broke the silence. "If you're so sure I'm a threat, why haven't you killed me yet?" Celara stopped walking and turned to face him. "Because," she said, her voice low and conflicted. "I've killed many people in my life, Alex Carter. But I've never killed someone who didn't deserve it." Her words hung in the air like a challenge. Alex met her gaze, his fear giving way to something else. Curiosity, maybe even a glimmer of respect. "You think I don't deserve it?" he asked. "I don't know yet," Silera admitted. "But until I do, you're coming with me. If you are as innocent as you claim, then someone wanted me to fail this mission. And if that's true, neither of us is safe." Alex nodded slowly, realizing that whatever web he'd been caught in, Silera was now tangled in it too. As the jungle around them grew darker, one thing became clear. Survival would require them to trust each other, whether they liked it or not. A fragile alliance. The cavern's dim bioluminescent glow bathed Alex and Silera in eerie green light as they crouched behind an outcrop of alien rock. The echoing drip of water and distant hum of wildlife were the only sounds in the cavern, yet tension buzzed between them like a live wire. "I still don't get why we're hiding here," Alex whispered, his voice barely audible. "Because it's the last place anyone would look for us," Silera replied, her tone sharp but quiet. "And because I don't trust you to survive anywhere else." Alex bristled at the jab. "I'm tougher than I look, you know." "Really?" Silera arched an eyebrow. "You screamed like a child when the drone exploded earlier." That was a perfectly rational reaction. Alex shot back. Silera ignored him, her attention already on the glowing orb she had pulled from her armor. She pressed her fingers to its surface, and a holographic display flickered to life, casting complex symbols into the air. Alex peered over her shoulder, unable to decipher the alien script. "What's that?" he asked, his curiosity overriding his irritation. "My mission briefing," she replied curtly. "I'm trying to figure out why someone wants you dead." "I told you, I don't know," Alex said, exasperated. Silera didn't look up. "Then we'll find out together. But if I discover you're lying," her voice trailed off, leaving the unspoken threat hanging in the air. Alex sighed and slumped against the cavern wall. "I'm not lying. I don't even know how to lie convincingly." "That," Silera said dryly, "is the only reason you're still alive." The tension broke slightly when Alex let out a wry chuckle. "Thanks, I guess." Before Silera could reply, her holographic display beeped sharply, and her face hardened. "There," she said, pointing to a section of the screen. "That's why you're a target." Alex leaned in, his eyes narrowing as he tried to make sense of the alien characters. "Care to translate?" Silera hesitated. "You worked on a translation project, didn't you? One involving interspecies treaties." "Yeah," Alex said, nodding. "It was just a bunch of boring texts. Legal jargon, diplomatic niceties. Nothing dangerous." Silera's expression darkened. One of those boring texts contained the coordinates to something very dangerous, an ancient weapon, powerful enough to level entire planets. Your people accidentally stumbled onto it, and my leaders want to make sure it never falls into the wrong hands. Alex's heart sank. "Wait, you're telling me?" "I translated something that got me on a galactic hit list." "Exactly," Silera said. "And now, I have to decide if protecting you is worth risking my life." Alex frowned. "You're the one who decided not to kill me, remember? You could have just left me back there." Silera's jaw tightened. "I don't leave loose ends," she said simply. Before Alex could argue further, the cavern trembled. Loose rocks clattered to the ground as a low, ominous rumble echoed through the air. "What was that?" Alex asked, his voice rising in panic. "Trouble," Silera said grimly, standing and drawing her weapon. "They found us." A bright light flooded the cavern entrance, followed by the sound of metallic footsteps. Alex's stomach turned as heavily armed bounty hunters filed in, their weapons gleaming in the eerie light. "Well, this is just great," Alex muttered. "What's the plan?" "Stay behind me," Silera said, her voice firm. The bounty hunters spread out, their leader stepping forward. He was a hulking alien with a cybernetic arm and a permanent sneer. "Hand over the human, assassin," he growled, "and maybe we'll let you live." Silara didn't flinch. "You're out of your depth," she said coolly. The bounty hunter laughed. "And you're out of options." The standoff lasted only seconds before chaos erupted. The bounty hunters opened fire, but Silara was already in motion, her blade flashing in the dim light as she deflected shots with inhuman precision. Alex pressed himself against the cavern wall, his heart pounding as he watched the battle unfold. Silara moved like a force of nature, her every movement precise and deadly. Despite her skill, the sheer number of bounty hunters threatened to overwhelm her. Alex clenched his fists, his fear battling against a surge of determination. "I can't just sit here," he muttered to himself. Spotting a loose rock nearby, Alex grabbed it and hurled it at one of the bounty hunters, hitting him square in the head. The alien stumbled, distracted just long enough for Silara to finish him off. "Stay down," Silara barked, glaring at Alex. "You're welcome." Alex shot back, ducking as another blast narrowly missed him. The fight dragged on, but Silara's skill and Alex's clumsy improvisation eventually turned the tide. When the last bounty hunter fell, Silara turned to Alex, her expression a mixture of exhaustion and disbelief. "You're lucky you didn't get yourself killed," she said, holstering her weapon. Alex grinned, despite his trembling hands. "Yeah, well, I guess I'm not totally useless." Silara shook her head, but there was a faint trace of amusement in her eyes. "Don't push your luck, human." As the two caught their breath, a realization settled over them. They were no longer just running. They were fighting for survival, together. Secrets revealed. The hidden research facility stood in eerie silence, its walls covered in a fine layer of dust. Faded holographic displays flickered faintly on cracked consoles, remnants of a forgotten era. Alex trailed behind Silara, who moved with cautious precision, her weapon drawn and senses on high alert. "This place gives me the creeps," Alex muttered, his voice echoing faintly in the empty corridors. "Good," Silara replied without looking back. "Fear keeps you alive." "I was hoping for something more comforting," Alex grumbled, but he followed her without complaint. Silara stopped suddenly, her sharp eyes scanning a nearby console. "Here," she said, gesturing for Alex to step forward. "This system might hold the information we need. If you're as good with technology as you claim, prove it." Alex sighed, brushing dust off the console before sitting down. "You know, you could say, please once in a while." "I could," Silara said dryly, "but I won't." Alex rolled his eyes and got to work, his fingers flying over the alien interface. At first, the symbols made no sense, but as he dug deeper, patterns emerged, ones he recognized from his previous work as a translator. "Got it," he said after a few tense minutes. The console buzzed to life, and a hologram projected into the air, a map of a distant star system. "What is this?" Silara asked, stepping closer. "It's coordinates," Alex said, his voice tinged with disbelief. "Coordinates to something big. Some kind of vault." Silara's expression darkened. "Not a vault. A weapon," she said, her tone heavy with realization. Before Alex could process her words, the hologram shifted, displaying a series of logs written in an alien language. He squinted at the text, his mind racing as he translated. "This doesn't make sense," he said, frowning. "These logs say the weapon is ancient, predating most known civilizations. But why would anyone think I have access to it?" Silara's voice was grim. "Because your people accidentally stumbled onto it during your translation work. That knowledge made you dangerous. If anyone, human or alien, gets their hands on this, it could destabilize the entire galaxy." Alex leaned back, his head spinning. "So, all this time, they've been hunting me because of a translation." I didn't even know what I was reading. Knowledge is power, Silara said quietly, her violet eyes fixed on the hologram. And power like this is a threat to everyone. As they stood in silence, the faint sound of static crackled through the facility. Silara's eyes narrowed, and she tapped her comm device. "They're coming," she said, her voice sharp. "Who's coming?" Alex asked, panic rising in his chest. "Whoever doesn't want us to leave here alive," Silara replied. "We need to move. Now." She grabbed Alex's arm and pulled him down a side corridor, her movements quick and deliberate. The sound of boots echoed behind them, growing louder with every step. "They're already inside," Alex whispered frantically. Silara ignored him, her mind racing as she scanned the facility for an escape route. Finally, she spotted a maintenance hatch half hidden behind a pile of debris. "Through there," she said, shoving Alex toward it. "What about you?" Alex asked, his voice shaky. "I'll cover you," Silara replied, drawing her weapon. Before Alex could argue, a blast of energy scorched the wall above their heads, forcing him to dive through the hatch. Silara turned to face their attackers, her blade gleaming as she deflected incoming fire with practiced ease. "Move, Alex," she shouted, her voice cutting through the chaos. Crawling through the narrow tunnel, Alex's mind raced. He couldn't shake the image of Silara standing alone against overwhelming odds, risking her life for him, a man she'd been sent to kill. Finally, he emerged into another section of the facility, his breath coming in ragged gasps. Moments later, Silara appeared, her armor scorched but her determination intact. "They'll regroup," she said, her voice steady despite the chaos they'd just escaped. "We need to find transport and get off this planet before they lock us down." Alex nodded, his gratitude unspoken but evident in his eyes. For the first time, he began to see Silara not as an enemy, but as an unlikely ally, one who might be just as trapped in this deadly game as he was. As they disappeared into the shadows, one thought lingered in Alex's mind. If the weapon they'd uncovered was real, then their fight was only just beginning. The turning point. The night sky on the barren moon was eerily silent, its twin stars casting an unearthly glow over the rocky expanse. Alex and Silara sat at the edge of a jagged cliff, the remnants of their stolen hovercraft smoldering in the distance. They had barely escaped with their lives. "We can't keep running like this," Alex said, breaking the silence. His voice carried a mix of exhaustion and frustration. "Everywhere we go, they find us. It's only a matter of time before they win." Silara didn't respond immediately. Her violet eyes scanned the horizon, her mind working through countless scenarios. "Survival is never guaranteed," she said finally, "but giving up ensures failure." Alex sighed, rubbing his temples. "You sound like a motivational poster. Do they teach that in assassin school?" To his surprise, Silara's lips twitched in what could almost be called a smile. "No," she said, "but they do teach you to weigh the odds. And right now, ours aren't looking good." "Comforting," Alex muttered, leaning back against the rocky outcrop. "What's the plan, then?" Silara hesitated, something uncharacteristic in her rigid demeanor. "We need to change the rules of the game," she said, her voice quieter now. "What does that mean?" Alex asked, sitting up straighter. She turned to face him, and for the first time, Alex saw a flicker of vulnerability in her sharp features. "It means I need to stop thinking like an assassin and start thinking like you, a human." Alex blinked. "That might be the most backhanded compliment I've ever received." "It's not a compliment," Silara said, but there was no malice in her tone. "Humans have an irritating tendency to thrive in chaos, to find solutions in places others wouldn't even look. That's what we need right now." Alex frowned, considering her words. "Okay, so, what are you suggesting?" Silara pulled a small cylindrical device from her armor and placed it between them. "This contains a fragment of the weapon's data," she explained. "If we leak it, we can shift the focus away from us and onto the people truly pulling the strings. Wait, you want to release information about a galaxy-destroying weapon? Alex asked, alarmed. Won't that just make things worse? Not the weapon itself, Silara clarified. Just enough to expose the conspiracy behind it. If the galaxy's factions are busy turning on each other, it buys us time to figure out how to destroy the weapon for good. Alex hesitated. The plan was dangerous, reckless even, but it had a certain logic to it. And what happens to us in the meantime? We survive, Silara said simply. Great, Alex muttered. I feel so reassured. Before Silara could respond, a low rumble shook the ground beneath them. Alex scrambled to his feet, panic flashing in his eyes. What now? He asked, his voice rising. Silara activated her scanner, her expression darkening. They're here. Who? Everyone, she said grimly. Bounty hunters, soldiers, agents, they've all tracked us here. Alex felt his stomach drop. And we're sitting ducks. Not quite, Silara said, standing and picking up the cylindrical device. This is the turning point, Alex. If we make it out of this, we have a chance to change everything. But if we fail, she didn't need to finish the sentence. Alex nodded, determination replacing his fear. So what's the plan? Silara handed him a small, sleek device, a personal cloaking module. You're going to disappear, she said. What about you? Alex asked, alarmed. I'll lead them away, she replied, her tone firm. They'll focus on me long enough for you to transmit the data. Once the galaxy sees the truth, they'll turn their attention to the real threat. No way, Alex said, shaking his head. I'm not leaving you to die. This isn't a discussion. Silara snapped. You're the only one who can do this. I need you to trust me. Alex hesitated, his heart pounding. He hated the idea of leaving her behind, but he couldn't deny the logic of her plan. Fine, he said finally, but you'd better come back alive. Silara gave him a rare fleeting smile. I don't die that easily, human. As the rumbling grew louder and the faint glow of approaching ships lit up the horizon, Alex activated the cloaking module and vanished from sight. Silara stood alone on the cliff, her weapon drawn, and her resolve unshakable. Let's see how well they handle chaos, she muttered, stepping forward to face the oncoming storm. Redemption. The sky burned with streaks of fire as ships tore through the atmosphere, their engines roaring like the wrath of the gods. Alex stood on a jagged ridge overlooking the battlefield below, his heart pounding in his chest. He clutched the device Silara had entrusted to him, the key to exposing the conspiracy that had turned his life upside down. But she wasn't by his side. Come on, Silara, Alex muttered, scanning the chaos below for any sign of her. Don't do this to me. The comms crackled in his ear, and her voice broke through the static. Alex, are you in position? Relief flooded through him. Barely. What about you? I've bought us time, Silara said, her tone sharp but edged with exhaustion. But you need to act now. Upload the data before they find you. Alex hesitated, his fingers hovering over the device. And what about you? Where are you? I'm where I need to be, Silara replied. This isn't about me, Alex. It's about the galaxy. If you succeed, none of this will be for nothing. Alex gritted his teeth, torn between the urgency of the mission and the gnawing fear that Silara was sacrificing herself. He glanced down at the holographic interface of the device, the transmission sequence ready to go. One press, and the truth would ripple across the galaxy, unraveling the conspiracy that had set these events in motion. But at what cost? Alex, Silara's voice came through again, this time softer. You need to trust me. Finish what we started. He swallowed hard, nodding to himself. Okay, he said, his voice steady. But you better survive this. I'm not doing all this just to lose you. For a moment, there was silence on the other end. Then, almost imperceptibly, she said, You won't lose me. Alex took a deep breath and pressed the button. The device hummed to life, and a beam of light shot into the sky, carrying the encrypted data to thousands of relay satellites scattered across the galaxy. Within minutes, the information would reach every major faction, exposing the weapon's existence and the web of lies surrounding it. Below, the battlefield erupted into chaos. Ships and soldiers from rival factions turned on each other as the implications of the data sank in. The hunters who had been chasing Alex and Silara suddenly had much bigger problems to deal with. But Alex's relief was short-lived. A bright explosion lit up the horizon, and his comms went silent. "Silara," he called out, panic rising in his voice. "Silara, do you copy?" No response. He didn't hesitate, activating the cloaking module Silara had given him. Alex sprinted down the ridge, weaving through the chaos. The ground shook beneath his feet as ships crashed and weapons fired. But he pressed on, his focus singular. Finally, he spotted her. Silara lay on the battlefield, her armor scorched, and one of her weapons shattered beside her. She was alive but barely conscious, her breathing shallow. A group of enemy soldiers had her surrounded, their weapons trained on her. Alex didn't think. He grabbed a piece of debris, a jagged metal rod, and charged forward, his invisibility giving him the element of surprise. With a shout, he swung the rod at the nearest soldier, knocking him to the ground. The others turned, but Alex moved with desperate speed, using every ounce of strength and adrenaline to fight them off. By the time the last soldier fell, Alex was gasping for air, his hands trembling. He dropped the rod and knelt beside Silara. "Silara," he said, his voice breaking. "Stay with me." Her eyes fluttered open, and a weak smile tugged at her lips. "You're reckless," she whispered. "And you're stubborn." Alex shot back, his voice cracking. "Don't you dare die on me." Silara chuckled faintly, wincing at the effort. "I told you, I don't die easily." Alex activated the medkit built into her armor, watching as the advanced alien technology began to stabilize her. Relief washed over him as her breathing steadied and some color returned to her face. "We did it," he said softly, glancing at the chaos still unfolding around them. "The galaxy knows the truth now." Silara nodded weakly. "You did it. You made the impossible happen." "No," Alex said, shaking his head. "We did it. Together." For a moment, they sat in silence, the noise of the battlefield fading into the background. Despite everything, the danger, the chaos, the loss, they had found a way to fight back. And in doing so, they had found something neither of them had expected: trust, and perhaps something more. As the first rays of dawn broke through the smoke-filled sky, Alex helped Silara to her feet. "Let's get out of here," he said, a faint smile on his face. "I don't think either of us wants to stick around for the aftermath." Silara leaned on him for support, her own lips curving into a rare smile. "For once," she said, "I agree with you." Together, they walked toward the horizon, leaving behind the battlefield and the beginning of a new chapter, one where they would face whatever came next side by side.